Bull riding isn't just a sport, it's a battle for survival. Every ride could end in shattered bones, a fight for breath, or worse. These are the 13 bull rides where everything went terrifyingly wrong. 13. Joao Ricardo Vieira versus Doze Down. This was one of the most talked about wrecks of the season for its bizarre and brutal impact. It involved Brazilian bull rider Joao Ricardo Vieira and Doze Down. At the second event of the 2024 PBR Unleash the Beast season, December 2nd to 3rd, 2023 at the Enterprise Center in St. Louis, Vieira drew the explosive bull Doze Down in round 2. As the chute gate swung open, Doze Down twisted sideways, slamming Vieira into the steel chute. Vieira took a hard hit to the head and shoulder, but amazingly avoided serious injury. PBR medical staff checked him and he was cleared to ride again. However, he never returned to get on another bull that night, and surprisingly, he wasn't given a re-ride option. Different event, same nightmare, and the next rider paid the price. 12. Brian Herman versus Roll the Dice. The PBR world is so brutal, even the most skilled riders can't escape getting punished. At 38, Brian Herman participated in a bull riding event in Glendale, Arizona. He was up against a bull called Roll the Dice. He made a solid ride, scoring 88 points, and things seemed perfect until he tried to get off the bull. That's when it all went wrong. Roll the Dice stepped on Herman's ankle, leading to a terrible fracture that required instant surgery. Another brutal reminder that in bull riding, you don't just risk falling off, you risk everything. Herman didn't get back to bull riding immediately. He had to go through rehab for a couple of months before finally making a long-awaited appearance in Billings, Montana. Imagine going from riding up high to suddenly lying underneath a 2,000-pound beast. 11. Caleb Pistol Robinson versus Carrillo Cartel, Madison Square Garden, opening weekend of the 2012 season. Caleb Robinson draws a bull no one wants, Carrillo Cartel. He was aiming for a top 10 finish, but instead, he ended up with what would become one of the worst wrecks of the year. Carrillo Cartel exploded out of the chute with ferocious spins. Robinson held on valiantly for a few seconds, but was bucked off awkwardly, landing directly under the bull's hooves. As Robinson hit the dirt, Carrillo Cartel came down hard, trampling both of his legs. In the process, he fractured his right femur and left tibia. It also gored Robinson's shins with its horns. The impact also splintered Robinson's spine. Medical staff rushed in amid crowd screams. The force was later calculated to be equivalent to being hit by a taxi at 21 miles per hour. Robinson was stretchered off and rushed to the hospital, where he underwent emergency surgery to insert steel rods in his legs. At the time, Robinson was 28 years old and ranked about 14th in the world. He missed nearly 2 years of competition before making a heroic comeback in January 2014. He stayed in the sport until 2015, retiring with a legacy of toughness. Ednei Caminhas contra White Lies. When a top rider climbs into the chute, there's always more on the line than just a score. For Ednei Caminhas, facing the bull White Lies was a make-or-break moment. One wrong move and he'd fall out of the top 40. And straight into demotion. Caminhas knew what was at stake, but White Lies wasn't about to make this easy. Caminhas was able to stay on this bull for almost 7 seconds. Sadly, that was how far he went before he was bucked off. He landed on his shoulder, prompting him to take a break for a couple of weeks. This injury was a major problem, but it wasn't all that Caminhas had to deal with. Since he was unsuccessful with this ride, he had to go down to the Challenger Series. This was basically adding salt to injury. 9. Zach Brown versus All In. When Zach Brown faced All In, he knew this bull had a reputation for tossing nearly everyone off. He didn't have to take this challenge, he wanted it. This matchup happened in Fresno, California, and it's one Zach will never forget. He lasted only 2.9 seconds before things went wild. He got tangled in his rope, and the bull even ripped his jacket off. This short moment felt like an eternity. He could have been stuck on this bull for a long time, but he fought and successfully got out of its grip. Despite the chaos, Zach managed to escape the bull's grip and thankfully walk away on his own.
It's over, and in my opinion, that's the right attitude to go at it with.
Meanwhile, same could be said for Zach Brown and All In trying to take a piece of the California Cowboy with him.
8. Ryan McConnell versus Voodoo Child. Ryan McConnell faced off with Voodoo Child in the championship round of the 2009 PBR Built Ford Tough Tampa Invitational. He was bucked off and kicked, suffering a concussion and facial cuts. This happened in August 2009 at the St. Pete Times Forum, now Amalie Arena, as part of the PBR's premier Built Ford Tough series. McConnell, an Oklahoma native and rising PBR star, was thrown early by the notorious Voodoo Child. The bull's explosive spin and power led to a 98.41% buck-off rate at the time, so Ryan stood little to no chance. This wreck landed among ESPN's top 10 worst of 2009. Still, McConnell managed to walk away and got stitched up by the training staff. After this wreck, he made the decision to start riding with a helmet. This next moment will go down in history as one of the most brutal in the 2009 bull riding season. 7. Travis Briscoe versus Hot Stuff. Travis Briscoe once faced a bull called Hot Stuff in a clash that saw him tossed into the air in 4.7 seconds during the championship round of the 2009 F-150 Invitational. This matchup was at the Pueblo Convention Center Arena, May 2009, and was one of that season's worst. Briscoe needed immediate medical attention but avoided serious long-term injury, and still competed at the 2009 PBR World Finals. Like Briscoe, this rider also escaped lasting injury, but not without a serious wreck. 6. Matt Bohon versus Spitfire. Matt Bohon was bucked off by Boyd, Floyd's notorious Spitfire, during the championship round of the 2009 Bud Light Invitational in San Antonio, Texas. Bohon was knocked unconscious after being dragged under the bull and slammed hard, suffering a severe concussion. This wreck left Bohon hospitalized. He underwent surgery on August 3rd for a fractured lower jaw. Plates and screws were inserted. He also suffered an upper jaw and right shoulder blade fracture. Fortunately, there was no long-term riding impact as he returned later that year. Sometimes, what looks like a simple fall hides a nightmare waiting to unfold. That was the case for the next bull rider. 5. Tanner Girletz versus Yellow Jacket. Tanner Girletz was bucked off by Yellow Jacket Jr. in the championship round of the 2009 PBR Des Moines Invitational. He suffered a severe wreck that left him unconscious and required hospitalization for a concussion. Girletz was thrown early in the ride, landing hard and remaining motionless on the arena floor in one of the season's most alarming wrecks that halted the event briefly for medical response. He regained consciousness on site, was transported to a local hospital for evaluation, and was released the next day with no long-term injuries, allowing him to resume competing soon after, including at the 2009 PBR World Finals. No score was recorded for the buck-off. This next wreck almost cost the rider his life. 4. Brendon Clark versus Black Smoke. Brendon Clark was bucked off by Black Smoke in the second round of the 2009 Bass Pro Shops shootout in Omaha, Nebraska. He suffered a near-fatal wreck after the bull slammed his hind legs into his sternum and abdomen. It also stepped on his stomach and chest and left him with a lacerated liver, contusions, bleeding in both lungs, rib fractures, and a concussion. Clark was stabilized at the arena by PBR's medical team before being rushed to a local hospital. He spent 5 days hospitalized in serious but stable condition, receiving treatment for internal bleeding and organ damage. Miraculously, he recovered and returned to the Built Ford Tough series that August, even qualifying for that year's World Finals. No score was given due to the early buck-off. This brutal incident marked a turning point in Clark's career. He retired in 2013 and now trains horses and works as a commentator. It remains known as his worst injury, nearly ending his riding days. These last 3 wrecks ended in tragedy. 3. Dylan Grant's last ride, a tragic end to a promising career. Dylan Grant, a 24-year-old professional bull rider from Pavilion, had his final bull ride on April 3rd, 2025 in front of about 2,500 spectators. Grant was participating in a bull riding event in Wharton, Texas, when he was bucked off early by the bull he was riding. His fall didn't look unusual, just a basic buck-off, but then everything changed. The bull's hoof came down on his neck in a rare and devastating accident, causing fatal internal injuries. The arena stood frozen, another life lost to the sport that demands everything. Event medics rushed in, stabilizing him before an airlift to Memorial Herman Texas Medical Center in Houston. Despite their efforts, Grant passed away later that night. 2. Mason Lowe versus Hard Times. 3-time World Finals qualifier Mason Lowe faced the bull Hard Times, and tragically never lived to tell his tale. One of the darkest nights in modern bull riding. On January 15th, 2019, at the Denver Coliseum, National Western Stock Show, Colorado, Lowe rode strong for nearly 8 8 seconds, but was bucked off just as the buzzer sounded. The bull's hind leg stomped directly on his chest, causing massive heart, aorta, and valve damage despite wearing a protective vest. Lowe stood briefly, clutched his chest, and then collapsed. He was airlifted to a clinic but died the next day from internal trauma. And finally, the moment that changed bull riding forever. 1. Lane Frost versus taking care of business. If there's just one PBR accident that the bull riding community will not recover from, it has to be Lane Frost's last ride. On July 30th, 1989, at Cheyenne Frontier Days in Wyoming, Frost rode the infamous bull called Taking Care of Business. He rode successfully for 8 seconds, scoring 85 points. As he dismounted, the bull spun back, lowered its head, and horned him in the ribs with a direct upward strike. The impact broke several ribs, severed a major artery, and punctured his heart and lungs. He stood for a heartbeat, then collapsed as the crowd fell silent. Rushed to Memorial Hospital North in Cheyenne, he was pronounced dead on arrival from massive internal bleeding. The legend of Lane Frost still rides today, a reminder that every cowboy knows the risk and rides anyway. These 13 moments prove it. Bull riding isn't just dangerous, it's unforgiving. For some, it's glory. For others, it's the end of the line. So here's the question: do the rewards justify the risk?